Veteran screamed, "Impostor," until Black Nurse recited the sacred oath of his KIA unit. The VA hospital in D.C. had the eerie stillness of a battlefield just before dawn. Antiseptic clean halls, fluorescent hum, silence so thick it echoed. But in Ward 9B, the calm shattered. "Impostor!" The howl cut through the corridor like a bayonet, guttural and desperate. Staff froze. A tray of meds clattered to the floor. Behind the reinforced glass of room 903, Sergeant Major Leonard Hawk Hawthorne stood rigid in his hospital-issue gown, fists clenched, eyes wide with animal panic. Spit foamed at the corner of his mouth. "Get her out! She's not real! She's one of them!" Inside the room, Nia Caldwell didn't move. She stood by the vitals monitor, pen still poised mid-chart. Her expression didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her eyes locked on Hawk's like steel doors sliding shut. 2 security guards rushed in, tasers half drawn. Dr. Anil Mishra, the ward's chief psychiatrist, followed with a sedative in hand. "Ms. Caldwell, step back, please," Mishra said, glancing between her and the imploding soldier. But Nia raised one hand, not in defense, in defiance. Her voice came low, steady, controlled. Like a switch being flipped, she spoke. "One squad, one soul, blood in sand, oath in bone. If I fall, I rise in you. No grave can hold what duty seals. We do not forget. We do not break. We are Reaper 6. Hawk's body froze mid-charge. His mouth still open, the scream collapsed in his throat. His knees hit the linoleum like dropped concrete. Silence. No one moved. The guards looked at Mishra, who stared at Nia like she'd just spoken in tongues. Nia looked down at the man trembling on the floor, his war-hardened body reduced to a shaking shell. "I'm not your enemy, Sergeant Major," she said, softer now. "You just don't remember me yet." They isolated her within the hour. Security escorted Nia to a temporary holding room on the administrative floor. Her badge was confiscated. Her ID, nursing license, federal clearance, all scanned and verified. But her presence had just triggered a code red. On the other side of a two-way mirror, Dr. Mishra sat with 2 military men who didn't identify themselves by name, but their shoes gave them away. Shined boots, non-reg issue. Not Army, not VA. Private, contracted. "She recited a classified unit oath," Mishra said, keeping his voice neutral. "One I've never heard in 16 years with veterans." "She shouldn't know it," said the taller of the 2 men. His jaw was square, eyes unreadable behind mirrored lenses. "It was verbal only. No record." "And the soldier?" "Sedated. Currently stable." The second man leaned closer to the glass. "She doesn't match the Reaper team manifest. We lost 6 out of 7 in that mission." "So who the hell is she?" Mishra asked. The tall man didn't blink. "That's what we're going to find out." They left Nia waiting for 3 hours. She sat upright in the molded plastic chair, legs crossed at the ankle, hands in her lap. Calm. Like she belonged here. The air in the room was tight with sweat and old paint, but she didn't shift once. Finally, the door opened. "Miss Caldwell," said the tall man. He carried a manila file that had her name typed on it, crisp and uncreased. Nia didn't speak. "You been working here how long?" 3 weeks. "According to this, yes, but your previous hospital in Atlanta has no employment record of you. No HR file, no paycheck history." "I worked contract," she said. "Night shifts, float nurse, records get lost. Not these kinds of records." The second man set down a tablet, tapping to show a blurry satellite image. Nia glanced. The coordinates in the corner showed North Africa, a compound, burned out, black bag op, no insignia. "You know what this is?" "I know what you think it is." "Sir, then tell us what that oath means." "The one you said to Hawthorne." She looked at them, eyes narrowing. "Would you know if I made it up?" Neither answered. "That's what I thought." Back in 9B, Hawk clawed out of his sedative fog like a man crawling from wreckage. He sat upright in bed, heart pounding in his chest like a boot against a door. For hours after the event, his brain replayed it on a loop. Reaper 6. The words hit like mortar fire, precise and lethal. His unit, Reaper Team 6, had been deep cover. No comms, no backup. Just a medical evac that never came. He remembered the firefight, the betrayal, the heat, the screaming. He remembered her. A voice calling through smoke, dragging him out of a collapsed bunker. But that was impossible. They told him she'd died. They told him all of them had died. Names on a plaque, closed caskets, a medal he couldn't remember earning. So how the hell was that nurse standing in his room, quoting their burial oath? In the staff lounge, a nervous intern scrolled through the hospital's personnel system again, trying to find something, anything, off about Nia Caldwell. Then he found it. Her orientation video was missing from the system. No timestamp, no login data, just a static screen with her badge ID and a blank profile picture. No voice clip, no background footage. Just one note, embedded in the code by someone very good at hiding things. Redacted by order of MX419. The intern stared at it, confused, and across the city, in a black glass building with no name on the door, a silent alert was triggered. Target active. Protocol breach. Reaper asset identified. The dream came on like artillery. Leonard Hawk Hawthorne was running. Not through hospital corridors or sterile therapy rooms, but through scorched desert air thick with gunpowder and blood. His boots pounded red sand. Smoke blurred the horizon. Somewhere behind him, someone screamed in 3 different languages. Forward, just ahead. She was there again. She turned toward him through the chaos. Dust caked to her cheek, eyes like obsidian. Her rifle strapped crosswise, a sidearm holstered tight against her ribs, a medic pack on her back, already half empty. She wasn't in nurse whites or a VA badge. She was geared up, tactical, and she was yelling at him. "Hawk, move! They're flanking north! Reaper 6, form on me!" Then the explosion took her. He woke, gasping, fists clenched so tight his palms bled. Nia Caldwell watched the sunrise from the hospital's rooftop access, a place no one had explicitly given her permission to be. She preferred it that way. Everything below, the endless repetition of charts, pills, procedures, felt fake, controlled. This place, the way they cleaned it, was designed to scrub away trauma. But trauma didn't wash out that easily. She pulled her field notebook from her coat pocket. It was small, battered, older than any of her IDs. She opened to a page marked only by 6 symbols, unit tattoos, stylized, not regulation. She traced her finger over the last one. The Reaper insignia, half skull, half scythe. Reaper 6, she whispered. It felt right in her mouth, like bone memory. But bone memory was a dangerous thing, especially if it got her killed again. The hospital administrator, Dr. Mishra, wasn't used to men in suits ordering him around. He liked calm, controlled environments. But these 2 men, no names, just badge numbers, had installed themselves in his office like a war room. They'd taken over her file, his desk, and now they wanted Hawk's too. "Look, Sergeant Major Hawthorne is a war hero," Mishra said, keeping his voice level. "Purple Heart, Bronze Star, PTSD, yes, severe, paranoid ideations. But he's stable. He was making progress before—" He hesitated. "Before Miss Caldwell." "Eh?" "Before the trigger," said the tall one. "You think she's a plant?" "We think she's a leak," the shorter one said. "Intentional or not." They slid a tablet across the table. On screen, grainy helmet cam footage. Night vision green, a squad moving through a desert compound, silent and tight. In the center, a woman, helmet off, gear bloodied, hands pressed against a dying man's throat. She was shouting orders while applying a field tourniquet. "This one lives. Move evac to LZ2, get Reaper 6 online." Mishra squinted. "That's her?" Facial match incomplete. Timestamp corrupted. Mission officially doesn't exist, but this came from a decrypted SAT drive found in a compound Talon X swept last year. Talon X? Mishra repeated. Private contractors? The tall one nodded. They don't lose assets. They bury them. Nia made her way back to Ward 9B, cleared by administration under strict restriction. No further interaction with Hawthorne. Observation only. 2 guards stood outside his room. The air was thick with tension and surveillance. She didn't knock. Inside, Hawk sat up straight in bed, clean-shaven, eyes sharper than they'd been in weeks. The sedation had flushed from his system, but something else was burning in its place. Recognition. He looked at her and didn't scream. You said the words. He rasped. I did. Then either I'm brain dead or you're real. You're not brain dead. Then who the hell are you? She stepped closer. Her voice dropped low. I was your field medic, Sierra November. The last one you saw alive before Talon X pulled you out. That's not possible, he said. They told me everyone else. They lied. He stared at her, rage and grief building behind his eyes like a tide. They gave me a coffin with your name on it, he whispered. I carried it. And they gave me a dog tag with yours. She held it out. Metal, worn, blood-rusted at the edge. His name, his blood type. Dried into it like ink into parchment. Hawk's hands trembled. I remember the last mission, he said. Fragments, a convoy. Something went wrong. We were outnumbered. You were betrayed, not ambushed. By who? Nia met his eyes. Your evac never came because Talon X didn't want witnesses. We saw too much, especially what they did to the civvies in Sector 12. Hawk looked down at the dog tag, his voice cracking. Everyone. They're dead. Maybe not all. He snapped his head up. What do you mean? There's movement. Survivors, maybe. But someone's trying to bury it. Us. That oath I said? It wasn't just for memory. It was a trigger. Hawk's mouth twitched. You activated something. She nodded. Deep memory lock. That mission. Everything after it. They suppressed it. Drugs. Hypnosis. Files. Wiped. You're telling me my brain was rewired? She looked him in the eye. Ripped apart and rebuilt. They didn't want you remembering. Because if you remembered, you'd talk. And if you talked, we'd all be dead. A long silence passed. Then Hawk swung his legs over the side of the bed. He reached for his shirt. Painfully slow. Old scar tissue mapped his ribs like a battlefield. You still got your field gear? He asked. I have what matters. You armed? Nia gave a tight nod. Safe house off Lincoln. 2 blocks. Secured. Then let's go, before they decide to sedate me again. I already disabled the hallway cameras. He gave her a sidelong look. You're not really a nurse, are you? She opened the door. I was never good at bedpans. At the front desk, 2 guards were preparing to rotate shifts when the alarm lights flickered. Then the security feed went black. By the time they made it to room 903, it was empty. No sign of the nurse. No sign of the patient. Just 6 words etched into the mirror with a scalpel. We do not forget. The city moved on above them, unaware. Below, in the cold concrete underbelly of D.C., Nia and Hawk sat shoulder to shoulder in a darkened subway maintenance tunnel, backs against rust-stained pipes, breathing in unison. The VA hospital was already 2 miles behind them, swallowed by noise, traffic, and misdirection. Nia's escape route had been precise. No cameras, no phone pings, no digital footprints. Every turn they took was a dead spot in the grid. She'd built the route for exfil, not for running. But now, they were running. Hawk broke the silence. So how long have you been awake? She kept her eyes ahead. 3 years. That's a long time to hide. I didn't have a choice. No one does. She glanced at him. Wrong. Some of us chose to remember. By sunrise, they were holed up in a walk-up over a closed upholstery shop on Lincoln Avenue. The safe house was a one-room flat with peeling walls, reinforced locks, and blackout curtains so thick the sun gave up before trying. No light got in. More importantly, none got out. Hawk wandered the room like a caged predator, running his fingers along the window frame, checking the vents, the door, hinges. Every tick was muscle memory, from a man who'd cleared buildings in Fallujah, Kandahar, and ghost towns too classified to name. Nia opened a false panel in the floorboards and pulled up a small Pelican case. Inside, a sidearm, 2 mags, burner phones, a flash drive wrapped in heat foil, and a folded combat patch. She slid the patch toward him. Hawk stared. It was Reaper 6's insignia. "I thought I was the last," he said. Nia didn't look at him. "You weren't." "Then where are they?" "Still sleeping, or dead." Talon X made sure no one would come looking. We were shut down, buried, and scrubbed from the books. Except you. "I got lucky." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "No such thing." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a crumpled printout, a pixelated scan of an old manifest with black bars through nearly every name. But one name was visible: Caldwell, Nia. Role: Field Medic. Reaper 6. Status: KIA. Hawk traced the letters with his finger. "How did you survive?" Nia's voice turned low, careful. "The op went sideways. Our intel was trash. Talon X had already turned. They were testing something. Mine suppression protocols. A tech compound masquerading as a weapons lab. They were experimenting on civilians. I remember the bodies. Clinics. Kids. You got hit bad during exfil, skull fracture, they had to carry you out. The evac wasn't from command, it was them. Talon X extracted you to erase the witnesses. And you? I took a different way out. Crawled 10 miles through desert with a bullet in my side and half my team behind me in body bags. Faked my death. Then I disappeared. And just became a nurse? I needed access. To the system. To the vets who survived. I've been tracking you for 2 years. Hawk rubbed his temples. The scar on his temple pulsed. All this time, I thought I was broken. I thought I'd gone insane. You were made to think that. Back at the VA hospital, Dr. Mishra paced the admin wing, livid. 2 personnel missing from a federal hospital. One of them a veteran with diagnosed PTSD, the other a nurse with forged credentials. And you're telling me there's no manhunt? The private contractor didn't flinch. This is now a containment operation, not a recovery. Mishra blinked. Containment? Ms. Caldwell is an unauthorized element, potentially hostile. Sergeant Major Hawthorne is a compromised asset, high risk. He's a man, Mishra snapped. A patient, and she's a ghost, the contractor interrupted coldly. And ghosts don't get due process. By nightfall, Nia had tapped into a restricted intranet line, an old Department of Defense relay still accessible through a hardware spoofer she'd hidden inside a broken blood pressure cuff. On screen, a stream of code bled down into her terminal. She bypassed 3 internal firewalls and located a dormant personnel record for Hawk. What she found stopped her cold. There were 2 versions of his file. One, the sanitized VA record, mild PTSD, stabilized symptoms, no major trauma, except 1 rescue op in Mali. That version painted him as a war hero who'd recovered. The second file was tagged MX419, the same code embedded in her own missing employment record. It told a different story. Subject, Hawthorne Leonard. Reaper 6, memory suppression trial candidate, Lars-Zaru-4. Mission, Operation Whispergate. Outcome, team wiped. Subject retrieved. Applied protocol, smokescreen. Conditioning, 87% effective. Memory lock installed. Monitor quarterly. Asset status, dormant. Risk, escalating. Recommend final containment. She pushed back from the table, her stomach hollow. They hadn't just wiped him. They'd built a shell and left him inside it. Alone, haunted, unaware of what they'd done. "You okay?" Hawk asked. She didn't answer at first. Finally, she said, "They plan to kill you if you started remembering." "That tracks," he said too calmly. "You were never supposed to wake up." He stood behind her, scanning the screen. "You think this is just about me?" Nia shook her head. "No, I think we were a pilot program." He frowned. "For what?" "For erasing soldiers like us, not just killing bodies, but burning the memory." She shut the laptop. "If they can do it to Reaper 6, they've already done it to others." He turned away, gripping the window frame with both hands, staring out through the slats in the blackout curtain. Then, as if from nowhere, he asked, "Do you remember Reyes, our sniper?" "Yeah," she said quietly. "I do. He used to hum when he was nervous. That stupid war movie theme." She nodded, smiling despite herself. "Platoon," she said. "He said it helped him focus. I dreamed about him last night." She looked up. He was burning. And screaming. And then... The voice stopped. Like someone hit mute. Hawk's jaw flexed. "Someone killed the sound inside my head. Someone made me forget my brothers." "They made you forget your oath," Nia said, stepping closer. He turned toward her, face hardening. "Then we take it back." She opened the drawer and handed him the sidearm. "One squad," she said. "One soul," he answered. The archive was buried under a decommissioned church in Anacostia, a sagging brick relic with boarded windows and a rusted iron cross still clinging to the steeple. Officially, the building had burned down in 2003. Unofficially, it had been converted into a dead drop depot for intel too volatile to store on any network. Only people like Nia knew it existed. She and Hawk arrived just before midnight, dressed as housing inspectors, complete with clipboards and fake badges. The church looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, beneath a charred altar and 3 rows of broken pews, a trapdoor waited under a false panel in the floor. Nia keyed in a 6-digit code she hadn't used in years. The lock disengaged with a dry click. "After you," she said. Hawk peered into the dark. "Remind me why all our secrets are buried underground?" "Because sunlight burns the truth." The archive smelled like dust and old metal. It was colder than the night above, the air humming faintly with preserved power lines and copper shielding. The space was narrow, lined with decommissioned filing cabinets, dry server towers, and binders that hadn't seen daylight in decades. Hawk scanned the shelves, unsettled. "This is where missions go to die." "Not all of them," Nia said. "Some of them come back." She led him to a coded drawer labeled Reaper Ops, Prophet Nomad. It resisted for a moment, then unlocked. Inside were sealed envelopes, battered hard drives, black and white photos, and one thick manila folder marked Aftermath, Whispergate. Red ink slashed across the top. They opened it. First page, a grainy satellite image of the compound where they'd nearly died, except this one was time-stamped 5 months after the mission. The compound was intact, rebuilt. Hawk blinked. "We leveled that place, firebombed it." Nia nodded grimly. "And they resurrected it." Next, a page of medical records, partially decrypted. Subject codes only, no names, but several entries matched Reaper Team vitals. Height, weight, blood type, injury locations. One entry even matched Hawk's scar pattern. But under status, each name read the same. Condition: sustained consciousness. Suppressed containment. Stable Hawk backed away from the file. "They're not dead," he said, voice shaking. "They're asleep," Nia whispered. "Medically induced, cryo, or coma, and hidden. They told me they were buried in Arlington." "They lied." He closed the folder, jaw tight. "Why?" She handed him a printed document from the bottom of the drawer. It was a contract, military subcontractor agreement, confidential. The contractor? Talon X Systems. In small print, Reaper 6, assigned to Phase 1 Human Cognitive Conditioning Trial. Project Smokescreen. Duration: indefinite. Oversight: denied. Hawk stared at the signature block. There were no names, only an emblem, an eye with no iris. He exhaled slowly. They turned us into test subjects. No, they turned us into weapons, Nia said. And they didn't want to decommission us. They wanted to store us. Reactivation risk? He guessed. Maybe. Or maybe they just needed us gone before we started asking questions. Hawk looked up at her. So you've had this the whole time? Only part of it. I had to trade to get access to the rest. Trade with who? She hesitated. Somebody I used to trust. 12 hours later, they met her contact in a diner just off I-395, a squat, greasy joint where the coffee came in chipped mugs and the booths smelled like burnt bacon and bleach. The woman waiting in the far corner wore civilian clothes, but everything about her posture screamed ex-military. Her eyes scanned the room in constant rotation. Her hair was buzzed to the scalp. Her knuckles were scarred. She looked at Nia and gave a curt nod. Caldwell. Red. Hawk stood awkwardly beside the table. Red raised an eyebrow. He doesn't remember me. He will, Nia said, sliding into the booth. Red took out a weathered flash drive and set it on the table between them like a landmine. Your unit was officially declared KIA, but there was a secondary memo from Talon-X. Internal only. They had 6 containment pods shipped to a black site in upstate New York. Coordinates redacted, but the shipping manifest leaked during a hardware breach. Who breached it? Hawk asked. Red didn't smile. You did. He blinked. You mean? Red nodded. Before they wiped you. You triggered an emergency uplink during the mission evac. Subconscious protocol. You were trying to warn someone. You just didn't know who. Why me? Because you were the only one awake when they came. Nia leaned forward. Do you have the black site address? Almost, but it's not enough. What is? Red glanced toward the kitchen window. You need someone inside Talon-X. Someone still working ops. Someone dirty. She slid a photo across the table. Surveillance, grainy but clear. A man in a tailored suit exiting a Pentagon-adjacent building. Mid-40s, scar on his cheek, cold eyes. Hawk paled. Major Isaac Bell. You know him? Nia asked. He was our handler, Hawk said. He wrote the oath. That night, in the safe house, Nia sat alone with a flash drive. She decrypted the files one by one. Security logs, personnel records, audio logs, then a single video file, distorted, audio garbled. A helmet cam, night vision green, bodies scattered across a desert floor. The voice on the audio was hers, distant, strained. Hawk's out. Reyes is down. We hold the line or we burn here. We do not forget. You hear me? You fall. You rise in me. Say it now. Say it. Then 7 voices in unison, echoing the sacred oath, and the sound of the compound's walls caving in. She shut the laptop and closed her eyes. They were still out there, but they weren't dead. They were waiting for someone to remember. The video leaked at 0430, a 37-second clip, grainy, handheld, showing Nia Caldwell inside room 903 of Ward 9B. She stands calmly in frame as a decorated combat veteran screams and thrashes in the background. Then, crystal clear, her voice delivers the unrecorded sacred oath of a unit that does not officially exist. One squad, one soul, blood and sand, oath and bone. The footage hit 3 restricted forums before sunrise. One was dark military Reddit. One was a whistleblower dead drop board known to contain CIA washouts and black site truthers. The third was less obscure, a private contractor internal message chain flagged for unauthorized surveillance breach. Within 15 minutes, Talon-X was mobilized. Not to patch the leak, to erase it, and everything connected to it. In a gray office 20 stories above the Capitol, Major Isaac Bell ended his call without saying a word. His phone vibrated again. A secure text marked Level 3 Red, Reaper 6, Protocol Breach. Confirmed. Leak origin, DC VA Hospital. 2 assets active. 1 presumed rogue. 1 reawakened. His jaw tightened. He stood from his chair, removed a photo of a Boy Scout troop from the wall, and behind it revealed a retinal scanner. The wall panel slid open. Inside, a sleek black weapons case, a laptop with direct access to Talon X's Ghost server, and a single laminated card. Burn list, classified assets. Expendable uncontained. Bell inserted the card. The screen lit up with a list of names, faces, and old ops designations. At the top, Caldwell, Naya. Reaper 6 actual. KIA, overridden. Below her, Hawthorne, Leonard. Reaper 6, Bravo. Dormant, reactivated. He typed a single line into the command interface. Activate smoke protocol. Then he hit send. The first body dropped by noon. Devon Hill, former DoD cryptologist, found slumped over in his Arlington apartment, coffee still warm in his cup. Heart attack, they said, though his medical file flagged no cardiac history, and his laptop had been professionally wiped within 30 minutes of discovery. He'd been the whistleblower who first posted the Reaper Oath video to the dead drop board. 2 hours later, a second body hit the news cycle. Sergeant First Class Alma Green, retired logistics NCO, unofficial quartermaster for off-the-books ops during the War on Terror. Shot in an alley behind a grocery store. Mugging gone wrong, the report said. No wallet, no phone. But Naya knew the truth before she saw the details. Both had helped her once. Both had answers. Now, both were dead. The safe house was too hot to return to. Nia and Hawk holed up in a crushed-out motel off Route 50, a cash-only dump with flickering neon and a paper-thin front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. Nia stared at her laptop, eyes hollow. "They're scrubbing the list," she said quietly. "Everyone who ever touched Reaper 6. Everyone who even knows what it was." Hawk sat across from her, legs shaking, trying not to come apart. "What's the plan?" "We go on offense," she said. He exhaled hard through his nose like he'd been waiting for permission to punch back. "About time." She turned the laptop so he could see. "This is the Reaper burn list. I've cracked part of it. 58 names, some dead, some in hiding, some were Talon X, some were Reaper adjacent, but there are 8 entries flagged red, high priority, active threats. And we're 2 of them," Hawk said. "Top of the list." He grunted. "Lucky us." Across the city, Major Bell moved silently through the corridors of a secure Talon X site. White walls, soundproof glass, guards with no names on their uniforms. In the basement level, he stepped into a room containing 6 cryogenic pods, humming in low, medical rhythm. Inside, 6 bodies, 5 men, 1 woman, motionless, preserved. Reaper. 6. Their eyes didn't flutter. Muscles didn't twitch. But every pod showed vital signs, stabilized heart rates, controlled breathing, neural activity hovering in low dream states. A technician looked up. "You want to initiate kill protocol, sir?" Bell shook his head. "Not yet. But the breach, they haven't found this place," Bell snapped. "They're still running." The tech swallowed hard. Bell leaned close to the pod containing Reyes, the sniper. His face was unchanged, like he'd been sleeping 20 minutes, not 5 years. "You remember her, don't you?" Bell said quietly. "The medic, Caldwell." The pod kept humming. "I built you to forget her," he whispered. "I built all of you to forget." That night, in the motel, Hawk sat on the bed with a folder Nia had pulled from the dead drop archive. Inside, his original psych eval from after Operation Whispergate. Subject suffers from dissociative gaps, mission-specific amnesia, and dreamlike recall of fabricated events. Displays elevated aggression when prompted with Reaper-specific triggers. Recommending total neural lock and asset suppression. Do not authorize field use. Hawk shook his head. "I read this before. They showed it to me once, told me I'd snapped, that none of it was real, that Reaper 6 was a placeholder name for a joint training squad, a simulation. Nia didn't speak. They buried my unit and convinced me we never existed. They tried to do the same to me, she said. Only difference is they didn't get to finish. He looked at her. You said we go on offense. How? We leak everything, she said. Drop the footage, the contracts, the Reaper roster, dump it all into the bloodstream. Journalists, watchdogs, foreign intelligence, the works. They'll kill us before we hit upload. Not if we make the first move somewhere they can't touch us. He narrowed his eyes. Like where? Nia hesitated, then pulled out a worn prepaid envelope. Inside, a ferry pass. Destination, Nova Scotia. There's a man there. Ex-Intel, off-grid, runs a secure uplink straight to 4 foreign blackmail servers. If we give him the files, they go everywhere at once. Russia, Iran, China, even the UN. Hawk raised an eyebrow. You trust him? I trust that he hates Talon X more than he loves his life. A beat passed. Then Hawk stood. Let's burn the list, he said, before they finish burning us. In the surveillance room at Talon X headquarters, Bell watched the motel camera feeds as Nia and Hawk packed their things. The red light above the monitor began blinking. Incoming message. Reaper 6. Actual. File accessed from non-grid terminal. Predictive route intercepting. Bell's lips curled into a smirk. Let them run. He clicked the button to activate a strike team. Let's see how far they get. The farmhouse sat in the middle of nowhere, a weather-beaten relic surrounded by skeletal trees with wind howling through its broken shutters like the ghosts of the men it had once hidden. 20 years ago, it was a CIA drop site. 10 years ago, Reaper 6 used it for isolation drills. Now it was the only place left off-grid enough for Nia and Hawk to breathe without ducking gunfire. They arrived at dawn, the sky thick with fog and frost. Hawk stepped out of the jeep with his pistol already drawn, scanning the perimeter. Barn. Clear? Fence line. Quiet. No tire tracks. No signs of entry. He still swept every room twice before letting Nia through the door. Inside, the walls were stripped, the furniture rotted. But beneath a loose floorboard in the back room lay what they'd come for. A field locker, sealed and stenciled with the ghost of their old unit sigil, R6 no grave. Nia knelt and cracked the seal. Inside, a tattered sat phone, sealed dossiers wrapped in Kevlar, 2 M4s stripped to their skeletons, and a manila envelope taped to the lid. She opened it. Hawk looked over her shoulder. The first page was a hand-drawn map. Not terrain. Neural architecture. A diagram of a brain segmented into quadrants, each labeled in handwriting they both recognized. Lieutenant Dr. Devon Mora, Yashture's Combat Neurology Division. Devon was our onboard shrink, Hawk muttered, embedded with Reaper during Phase 2. He designed the lock protocols, Nia said. Then maybe he left us a way to break them. They spent the next 12 hours inside the farmhouse, windows boarded, lines cut. Hawk spread the documents across the floor. Devon's hand-scrawled analysis of mind suppression, semantic fogging, layered memory distortion, and a term repeated again and again in increasingly jagged ink. Minefield. What is that? Hawk asked. Nia sifted through more pages. A buried architecture, memory suppression tech mixed with psychotropic reinforcement. Trauma triggers are wired with pain response. Step on the wrong tile, and your brain flinches away from truth. Conditioned landmines. Exactly. Hawk rubbed his temple. That's why the nightmares feel like torture. Because they are, she said. You're walking a minefield of your own mind. He looked down at the most damaged page, a scan of a Reaper 6 briefing report. Most of it was redacted, but one part was circled in red. Reaper 6 volunteers were implanted with counter-memory trauma loops. The protocol ensures total loyalty through internalized threat response. Recovery beyond 40% poses a risk of psychological collapse or violent deviation. Below that, If subject begins to recall full unit death sequence, initiate smoke protocol. Do not attempt restoration. By nightfall, Hawk sat in a corner of the farmhouse, silent. Nia had cleared space and laid out a makeshift neural recall station, modified transcranial stim pads, a battery unit, and a looping audio file of Reaper 6's oath. She handed him the pads. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "If they buried the truth," he said, strapping them on. "I need to dig it up." "Dig carefully," she warned. "This isn't surgery, it's demolition." She powered up the battery. The pads pulsed. Hawk's head jerked once, then stilled. His breath slowed. His pupils dilated. Then, stillness. Nia hit play on the oath. "One squad, one soul. Blood in sand." The words looped. Inside Hawk's mind, doors began to open. He was back in the desert, but not just flashes. This time he was present. The convoy had been ambushed, but not by locals. The attackers wore American boots, carried American rifles. Their patches were scraped off, but their movements were textbook Tier 1. He saw Nia, screaming at him to run, dragging Reyes, who had a hole in his leg the size of a fist. Devon was clutching a burned laptop, shouting into a sat radio that didn't work. Then came the airstrike. Not enemy fire, friendly. 2 Reaper teammates were incinerated before they could speak. Then the voice came over the radio, emotionless, clinical. "Echo team is non-compliant. Execute failsafe. Reaper protocol is compromised." He saw himself tackle Nia, shielding her body with his own as the earth ripped open beneath them. The scene froze, and the pain hit. A blinding migraine tore through Hawk's skull. His muscles seized, his throat locked mid-breath. Outside the vision, his body convulsed. Nia lunged forward, yanking off the pads. He gasped like he'd been drowning. Blood trickled from his nose. But his eyes were awake. "I saw it," he rasped. "They burned us. They made us the test." While Hawk recovered, Nia opened one last file, a raw list of backup Reaper protocols. Among them, a single name repeated in 5 separate contingency plans: Madge Isaac Bell, Contingency Lead. Authority Unlimited. Beside it, a code name: Chimera. Nia's blood went cold. "Bell wasn't just our handler," she muttered. "He was the architect." Hawk lifted his head. "Then we end him." Outside the farmhouse, a drone buzzed overhead, nearly silent. Inside a black SUV parked a half-mile out, a strike team leader adjusted his earpiece. "We've got movement. 2 targets inside. Orders?" Bell's voice came through, crisp and cold. "No capture. Burn it. Let them know we're watching." The SUV's trunk opened. One of the soldiers pulled out a canister marked with a crimson X. Thermobaric compound. Short range, high intensity. Designed for 0 survivors. They loaded it into a portable launcher. Inside the farmhouse, Hawk had just started to stand when Nia looked up sharply. Too quiet. She grabbed his shoulder. "Down!" As a roar split the air. The explosion cracked the sky open. Fire engulfed the upper floor. The shockwave turned walls to ash. But in the crawl space below the floor, where she'd dragged him seconds before impact, they survived. Buried, but alive. They emerged hours later, coughing soot and blood. The farmhouse was gone. Nothing left but embers and smoke. Hawk looked back at the ruins. "They're not trying to kill us," he said, voice hoarse. "Not yet." "They're trying to scare us back underground," Nia said. "Erase our momentum." "Then let's build some." He stared into the smoke, jaw clenched. "No more running." "Yeah." The city of New York had always been noisy, but this noise wasn't from cabs or tourists. It was surveillance. A constant hum beneath the concrete. Sensors embedded in crosswalks. Smart cameras cloaked in LED ads. Heat scanners hidden inside public trash bins. Every corner of Manhattan was a net. If you had a pulse, it tagged you. That's why Nia and Hawk didn't step foot into the city. They went underground, specifically into the Manhattan water tunnels, a subterranean artery still partially active, stretching beneath the Hudson like a buried memory. It was cold, damp, and lined with echoes of its own history, an ideal place for ghosts to meet. He was waiting for them near a collapsed shaft lit only by headlamps. Jonah Epps, war journalist turned fugitive, last seen fleeing the Green Zone with 2 flash drives and a broken femur. He had a reputation for finding the things governments deleted. He also once owed Nia Caldwell his life. "You're early," he said, squinting past his fogged lenses. "You're late," she replied, tossing him a dry pack. Jonah opened it, rifling through pages of contracts, satellite photos, and the Reaper protocol log. His eyes widened as he flipped to a still of the 6 cryopods. Jesus Christ. "Keep reading," Nia said. He did. Hawk stood behind her, silent, body coiled. Jonah let out a low whistle. "I heard whispers. Reaper 6 was one of the buried units, supposed to be ghosts, but this—" He held up a Talon X authorization sheet marked Chimera Phase 1, Reaper Neural Weaponization Trial. Someone funded a full-cycle brainwash op and turned a kill squad into a hard drive, he muttered. Hawk leaned in. "Who paid for it?" Jonah looked at them. "That's the best part." He unfolded a single sheet of parchment-thin budget paper from the back of the file, a chain of transaction routes buried through 7 shell companies, and at the end, one name, Pillarstone Institute. Nia's mouth went dry. "No," she said. Jonah nodded grimly. "Yeah? Your old employer. 4 years ago, the Pillarstone Institute was painted as a progressive think tank, PTSD research, battlefield trauma recovery, reintegration therapies. In reality, it was a DARPA-funded neurotech lab experimenting with combat memory modulation. Nia had worked there under a false name. Years before the war went truly dark, she thought she'd walked away. She hadn't. Back in the tunnel, she stared at the paper like it was a knife jammed into her past. "They built the scaffolding," she muttered. "The technology behind Minefield. They told me it was for rehab, to help soldiers forget trauma, not erase identities." Hawk's voice was low, bitter. "They didn't erase us. They weaponized our trauma and called it patriotism." Jonah frowned. "There's more." He handed Nia a photo, surveillance still, enhanced. A man in military dress walking through a private airfield. Major Isaac Bell. But behind him, being loaded onto a transport truck, were 2 cryopods, not 6. Nia's stomach dropped. He moved them. "Somewhere off-grid, somewhere colder," Jonah said. "And he's doing it fast. You rattled the wrong cage. He's trying to relocate everything before the world sees what Reaper 6 really is." Hawk asked, "Where's the rest of the team?" Jonah opened a laptop and pulled up a recovered voice memo, a transmission from Bell to a classified handler. "Initiating Chimera Phase 2. 2 Reaper units relocated. 1 terminated after cognitive breach. Remaining subjects to be prepped for neural porting. Caldwell has gone active, Hawthorne unstable. Recommend full wipe and protocol ash out." "Neural porting," Nia whispered. "They're uploading us." Hawk looked at her. "Into what?" "Whatever they can control," she said. "Portable soldiers, synthetic memories, ghost killers, AI with a pulse." Jonah's voice turned serious. "You need to leak this now." Nia shook her head. "If we dump it without proof of life, it gets buried in conspiracy. We need Bell, on camera, talking, or at least a live retrieval from the pods." "You don't even know where they are," Jonah said. Nia reached into her vest and pulled out a black thumb drive. "I cracked Bell's old SATCOM. Got a trace ping just before he disappeared off-grid. Tiny beacon. Signal bounced off a military weather drone in Newfoundland. There's only one facility within 100 miles that doesn't show up on any civilian maps." She clicked the drive into Jonah's laptop. An overhead image loaded, an ice-locked island off the Canadian coast. No roads, no name, just a concrete structure buried under snow, shaped like a scar. "Looks like hell," Jonah muttered. Then we're in the right place, Hawk said. The next morning, before dawn, Nia and Hawk left the tunnel and crossed state lines in a stolen maintenance truck. 2 burner phones, 1 satellite uplink, 0 digital trail. Jonah promised to hold the files until the signal. If you don't hear from us in 72 hours, Nia told him, dump everything. Jonah looked her in the eye. You're really going to war with ghosts? No, she said. I am the ghost. At the same moment, Isaac Bell stood alone in a dark corridor beneath the island facility. He watched as a technician adjusted settings on the remaining cryopods. Only 4 now. One of them hissed softly, venting condensation. The men inside stirred. Phase 2 is ready, the tech said. Bell didn't answer. Instead, he walked to a nearby console and keyed in a new order. Subject? Caldwell. Designation: Rogue. Threat level: Terminal. Authorization: Chimera Override. Engage Asset 9. The system paused, then confirmed. Activating Asset 9. Objective: Intercept. Terminate. Bell turned, voice flat. Send the dog. Back on the ferry, Nia sat in the cold, watching the fog roll over the water as the coast of Nova Scotia came into view. Hawk stood beside her, breathing hard. Do you believe they'll be there? They'll be there, she said. The ones they couldn't kill. And Bell? If he's smart, he'll run. Hawk looked out at the approaching shore. And if he's not? Nia drew her sidearm and checked the magazine. Then we put the ghost in the ground. The wind off the North Atlantic tore across the helipad with the fury of a world that wanted no witnesses. Snow whipped in sideways sheets. The island, and an uncharted slab of rock and steel, rose out of the ocean like a bunker buried in God's forgotten ice. It had no lights, no insignia, and no visible entrances, just a rusted-out sensor tower and a massive ventilation shaft bleeding condensation into the white void. Nia Caldwell crouched behind a snowdrift, breath slow, rifle steady. Beside her, Hawk adjusted the suppressor on his weapon and squinted through the thermal scope. 2 guards, no rotation. They're used to no visitors, he said. Let's be there first. Behind them, buried in the snow, a directional charge waited, wired to the access hatch that led down into the belly of the island. Blow it quiet, Nia said. Hawk smiled grimly. Loud enough to wake the dead. Inside the facility, Bell stood at the heart of the control room, bathed in low blue light. Cryopods hissed in quiet intervals across the chamber. 4 of them now, arrayed like shrines, each containing a frozen member of Reaper 6. Technicians moved like ghosts. No chatter, no eye contact. Every screen showed neural activity fluctuating as the Chimera protocol continued its synchronization. They were mapping brainwaves, uploading decades of field memories into an encrypted server labeled R6 Jost log. Bell watched it happen in silence. The operation was nearly complete. Within 12 hours, the last live brain patterns from the Reaper program would be digitized. After that, the pods could be scrapped or incinerated. His phone buzzed once. Asset 9 en route. ETA 12 men on. He slid it back into his pocket. Nia and Hawk moved fast through the outer corridors, all angles and steel, barely above freezing. The facility hadn't been built for comfort, only containment. Every hallway reeked of bleach and insulation. Lights buzzed overhead. No sirens, no guards. Either they were underground or waiting. This place is a tomb, Hawk whispered. They're keeping them cold so no one wakes up screaming. Nia pointed to a data port. Give me 5 minutes. She slotted in a signal booster, piggybacking off internal systems. The uplink blinked to life, and for the first time, Jonah's voice crackled through. Jesus, I thought you were dead. Not yet, Nia said. We found the site. 4 pods confirmed. Pull the trigger in 60. Dump everything. You sure? No, do it anyway. Bell reached the secured vault at the base of the cryo chamber and pulled out a metallic briefcase. Inside, A small capsule of nanotech-laced neurotoxin, fast-acting, synthetic, deniable. He turned to the tech beside him. Once the upload completes, initiate purge. The tech hesitated. But Caldwell? Will be dead, Bell said flatly. Sir, if she reaches the pods, she won't. At that exact moment, Hawk slit the throat of the first patrol with surgical precision. The second guard barely had time to register the motion before Hawk shot him twice, one in the thigh, one in the heart. They dragged the bodies into a maintenance closet and kept moving. But the hallway ahead came alive. Infrared lasers lit up. Auto turrets hummed awake. Too late. Nia dropped a compact EMP pellet into the corridor and ducked as the field burst with a flash of blue. Sparks danced across the walls. The turrets died mid-turn. They stepped through. I'm gonna miss analog war, Hawk muttered. Inside the cryo lab, the screen flashed. Neural sync. 92% complete warning. Unauthorized access detected. Bell's jaw clenched. He keyed the override. Somewhere deeper in the facility, a steel door slammed shut. Lockdown initiated. Then, across the screens, a new signal appeared. Jonah's uplink. Files were being pulled. Fast. Bell turned to the technician. Kill the feed. Now. We can't. It's bouncing off diplomatic sat constellations. We don't even own the paths. The Chimera protocol was bleeding out into the world. Bell's voice dropped into a growl. Then initiate Asset 9. They heard the footsteps first. Too heavy. Too rhythmic. Nia turned sharply. Contact. Heavy inbound. The hallway behind them rippled with heat distortion. Then a shape emerged. Man-shaped. But wrong. Too tall. Too stiff. He wore modified combat gear. Exoskeletal. Pulse-powered. His eyes glowed faintly beneath a carbon mask, and in his right hand a custom-built breaching hammer. Asset 9. Nia didn't hesitate. She fired twice. Center mass. The figure staggered. Then kept walking. Hawk shouted, "Move!" They split, dodging as Asset 9 smashed the wall behind them. Steel cracked. Sparks flew. Nia dropped low, fired at his legs. No effect. Hawk grabbed a thermite grenade from his belt. "Eat this, freak!" He flung it. Direct hit. Fire exploded around Asset 9, engulfing the hallway in flame. Nia grabbed Hawk's arm. "Run!" They broke through into the cryo wing just as Asset 9 emerged from the inferno, armor scorched but still functional. His mask melted at the edge, revealing part of a face. Not robotic, not AI, a man, but drugged, wired, possessed. Hawk stared in horror. "Holy shit! That's Monroe, Reaper 6 Charlie!" Nia's blood froze. Bell had reactivated him, turned their old teammate into a weapon. Half dead, fully enslaved. She raised her weapon, but couldn't fire. Monroe had once dragged her out of a sniper nest in Helmand, with half his face bleeding and rounds still in the air. Now he moved like death. Hawk stepped forward. "Monroe, it's me!" "Hawk, stand down!" Monroe paused. A flicker, then he charged. Nia had no choice. She fired into the cryo wiring above him. Sparks rained down. A conduit exploded. Monroe screamed, high, inhuman. He dropped. Alive, but twitching. "Go!" Hawk said, dragging Nia past him. "We'll come back for him." They reached the cryopods. Nia ran to the first one. Reyes, still breathing. She placed a hand against the glass. "It's real," she whispered. Bell's voice echoed from behind them, amplified through the speaker system. "Leave them. Take your lives and go. This is your last chance." Hawk turned slowly, pistol drawn. "No," he said. "We take them back." Nia activated the emergency release. Steam hissed. Fluid drained. Inside, Reyes's eyes fluttered. He opened them, looked at her, and smiled. Reyes's scream tore through the cryo lab like a blade, not of fear, of return. The reawakening process hit him like defibrillator paddles to the soul. He thrashed as nerves remembered pain, as his mind clawed its way out of the chemically induced fog that had kept him submerged for 5 years. Hawk gripped his shoulders while Nia kept one hand on his chest, another on the release valve, counting down every second his system needed to stabilize. "You're okay, Reyes," she said, voice iron. "You're out. Breathe." Reyes gasped, chest convulsing, then stilled. His eyes locked onto her face, pupils dilated. "Reaper 6, he croaked. Nia nodded. "What's left of us?" He blinked once. "Where's Monroe?" Neither of them answered. Behind the thick reinforced glass that separated the cryo wing from the rest of the facility, a war was about to start. Sirens wailed low across the compound. Red emergency lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Bell stood in the upper operations corridor, watching everything from behind armored shutters. His jaw clenched as the smoke cleared from the previous corridor breach. Asset 9, Monroe, was down, unresponsive. That wasn't part of the equation. He turned to the 2 remaining techs. "Seal the cryo wing." Hugh, one of them, hesitated. "Sir, 2 of the pods are still—" "I said seal it!" They punched the command. In the cryolab, heavy blast doors hissed, locking Nia, Hawk, Reyes, and the remaining unconscious Reapers inside. Behind them, fluid still drained from Pod 2, Diaz, the comm specialist, barely conscious. Pod 3 showed signs of neural stir. Young, their demolitions expert, twitching violently. "Bell's locking us in," Nia said. "He's about to purge the system." "I can override," Reyes grunted, forcing himself upright. "Give me a minute." "You've been frozen 5 years, Hawk said. "Then I'm behind schedule. In Talon X's uplink chamber, buried beneath the cryo wing. A data purge countdown, initiated. Smoke protocol, armed neural map files. Auto-erase in O4, Ed0 cryogenic pods. Auto-sterilize in Dero 5. 0. Jonah's voice came crackling through Nia's comms, distorted, panicked. "You've got 5 minutes before their system wipes every trace of Reaper 6 from the planet. Bell's using a subroutine called Smoke Protocol, designed to torch the files and the bodies." "Is the uplink still transmitting?" Nia asked. "Barely. I've cloned the basic logs, but not the full memory stack. You lose the pods. You lose the proof." Nia swore under her breath. "Copy." She turned to Reyes. "Can you kill the purge?" He shook his head. "Too deep, but I can stall it. 30 seconds, maybe more." "Not enough." "Then make it enough." Hawk moved to the far wall and kicked open a concealed panel. Behind it, the original demolition grid, built years ago during the compound's first construction, meant to bring the entire base down in case of foreign compromise. Young, awake now, groaned from inside his pod, voice hoarse. "Those are my toys." Nia moved to him. "You with us?" "Always." He reached out, cracked his knuckles. "Give me a detonator and a reason." Upstairs, Bell watched the vitals rise across all 4 remaining pods. "You should have stayed buried," he whispered. Then he activated the final override, biometric burn. Deep inside the cryosystems, temperature thresholds shifted. Neuro agents deployed, the final failsafe. A digital cremation. Inside the cryolab, Reyes shouted, "It's starting! We've got 2 minutes!" Nia ripped open Pod 4. "Sims, they're marksmen." He didn't stir. She checked his vitals. Flatline. She slammed her fist against the glass. "We were too late!" Hawk grabbed her wrist. "We get who we can. No more ghosts." They pulled Diaz free from her pod. She coughed violently, muscles twitching. Hawk slung her over his shoulder without pause. Young limped forward and started rigging the charges. "We blow the rear corridor," he said. "Drop the server room. Cut the chain before they finish the download." "Bell's still in the tower," Nia said. "Then we bring it down with him inside." Time blurred. 30 seconds to breach the corridor. 10 to plant the final charge. 5 to reach the escape shaft. Reyes stayed behind. He jacked directly into the uplink terminal with a bypass key he wasn't supposed to have, one he'd hidden in a false molar before capture. "I've got the full map stack," he called out. "Uploading to Jonah now. You've got a clean blast path. Go." Naya turned. "We're not leaving without—" "Go." The last thing she saw before the doors sealed was Reyes holding a detonator in one hand and a sidearm in the other, guarding the data with his life. The explosion rocked the island from its foundation. Smoke billowed through every level. Data cores melted. Steel cracked. Snow collapsed into the ventilation shafts. In the tower, Bell staggered as the power grid failed. The lights flickered, then died. For the first time, he felt vulnerable. He reached for his radio. Nothing, only static. Then, footsteps behind him, slow, measured. He turned, and froze. Nia stood in the threshold. No armor, no rifle. Just a pistol, aimed squarely at his chest. "You always did underestimate your own ghosts," she said. Bell didn't speak. He reached for the console behind him. Nia shot him in the shoulder. He screamed. "Move again and I finish it." Hawk entered behind her, dragging a coughing Diaz. "You burned us," he said. "Buried us." "I protected this country," Bell snarled. "You think the world wanted Reaper 6 in the light? You were never soldiers. You were prototypes." Naya stepped closer. "No," she said. "We were the proof you couldn't control." Bell lunged, desperation, not strategy. Naya fired once, right through the heart. He dropped like a marionette with cut strings. Smoke filled the room. The tower trembled. Hawk turned to Naya. "We have to go. Now." She stared at Bell's body, then turned her back. "Let it burn." They emerged from the shaft half-deaf, bruised, carrying the still-breathing remains of Reaper 6. The evac beacon blinked against the white-out fog. A rescue drone launched by Jonah's contact across the border. The files were uploaded. The world would see what they'd become, what they were made to forget. As the drone lifted into the sky, Nia looked down at her unit, coughing, bleeding, alive. The ghosts weren't gone. They were back. The hearings began 62 days after the fire on the ice. By then, the story had detonated across the world. Not a leak, a rupture. Classified contracts, cryopod schematics, neural weaponization protocols, Talon X payroll networks, the Chimera Directive, and the rewritten death certificates of Reaper 6. Every file Reyes had uploaded in his final act of defiance spread like wildfire through 4 continents in less than 12 minutes. Truth didn't just break containment, it burned through it. The United States Senate convened an emergency session of the Armed Services Committee. Security ringed the building 3 layers deep. Protesters packed the streets outside. Veterans demanding accountability. Activists demanding exposure. Contractors demanding silence. Inside the chamber, cameras flashed like muzzle bursts. At the center of the storm sat one man, Sergeant Major Leonard Hawk Hawthorne. He wore his dress blues, pressed and immaculate, medals aligned with surgical precision. The scars on his temple were visible under the lights. A bandage wrapped his left hand where frostbite still lingered. His posture was rigid, but not brittle. He looked, at last, like a soldier who had crawled out of the grave and meant to testify about the view. The chairman addressed him. "Sergeant Major Hawthorne, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?" Hawk interrupted. Voice gravel and fire. "I swore that oath years ago. I kept it. Others didn't." A hush rolled through the chamber. "Proceed," the chairman said uneasily. Hawk breathed in slowly, a deliberate, steadying inhale. He remembered this sensation, a door inside himself opening, the minefield no longer blocking the path. No more detonation under his memories, just clarity. "I was told my unit died in North Africa," he began. "I was told I survived because of heroism or luck. I was told the others never made it home. Every story they gave me was a lie." He paused, jaw tight. "My unit didn't die. They were taken." Screens lit up behind him, Jonah's compiled footage of the cryo facility, the pods, the data logs, Gasps echoed through the chamber. A senator covered her mouth. Another muttered, "My God." "They buried us in ice," Hawk continued. "Hooked us into machines, drained our memories and fed them into systems designed to build new kinds of soldiers. Soldiers without free will. Soldiers who don't know who they are." "And these, protocols?" a senator asked timidly. Hawk nodded. "Mind suppression. Memory excision. They weren't accidents or desperate wartime measures. They were tests. They wanted to build an army that never questioned orders. And they used us, Reaper 6, as the prototype." "Why you?" another senator demanded. He looked up, eyes igniting. "Because we were too good, too loyal, too obedient. They wanted to see how much loyalty they could carve out of a human mind before it broke." Someone in the audience sobbed. The chairman cleared his throat. "Sergeant Major, what exactly did you find at the facility?" Hawk closed his eyes. He saw the pods. Reyes screaming into life. Young crawling out with half his nerves still waking from frozen sleep. Diaz vomiting water and chemicals while whispering their names like remembering a prayer. Sims, silent, still, too late. And Monroe, twisted into something mechanical. Half man, half experiment. A weapon who'd once been their brother. When Hawk opened his eyes, the room felt smaller. "We found what they did," he said. "What they meant to do." "And what was that?" a senator asked quietly. Hawk's voice turned iron. "They meant to erase us." The testimony went on for hours. Hawk answered every question, even the ones that weren't really questions. He gave names, dates, locations. He described Project Smokescreen, the brain locks, the implanted trauma loops, the doctored missions. He told them what it was like to wake up every morning with a memory shaped by someone else's hand. By the time he finished, half the committee looked ready to vomit. The chairman closed the session with trembling hands. "This nation owes you more than we can ever repay," he said. "No," Hawk replied. "It owes the truth. And it owes justice." He stood. Every camera followed him. But he wasn't alone. Diaz was waiting in the hall, cane in one hand, fire in her eyes. Young stood beside her with his arm in a sling. Reyes's image, grainy and smiling, was pinned to Young's chest. Monroe's dog tag hung from Diaz's neck. A journalist shouted, "Sergeant Major, where is Nia Caldwell? Is she here to testify?" Hawk stopped. He stared down the corridor and smiled faintly. "Nia Caldwell went through hell to expose what happened to us," he said. "If she wants to testify, she will. If she wants peace, she's earned it 10 times over." "But where is she?" Someone pressed. Hawk turned away. "That's not my secret to tell." 3 weeks later, across the ocean, in a rehabilitation ward tucked deep inside a NATO base in the Italian Alps, a new nurse walked the night shift. She wore simple scrubs, a plain badge, and kept her hair tied back. Her name tag read, C. Daniels RN. But her eyes were unmistakable. She adjusted the blankets of a sleeping soldier, checked an IV, made a note in a quiet corner of the chart. No one noticed the way she moved. Precise, silent, deliberate. No one noticed the faint scar along her ribs. No one noticed the small black patch sewn into the inside of her coat pocket. A half skull, half scythe. She didn't speak often, but when the lights dimmed and the ward went still, she whispered a single line under her breath. A line that carried across continents, through ice and fire, through betrayal and resurrection. One squad, one soul. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, clean, new, and somewhere thousands of miles away Hawk exhaled, as if he could feel her voice in the breeze. The world had tried to bury Reaper 6. Instead, they rose. We do not forget, we do not break. We are Reaper 6.